Well, how do we counteract the adversities of this system? Please find 1 Samuel chapter 1. Hannah had two adversities, and they were like boom, boom, 1-2 punch designed to drop her for the count. The first one is in verse 2 of chapter 1. Elkanah had two wives. One was named Hannah, and the other was named Peninnah. Well, that's polygamy. And Peninnah loathed, she hated Hannah. Well, what was the second problem? It continues, Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. Hannah was barren. And in that culture, this was a bitter reproach for a woman. Well, what was devious, uncouth Peninnah really like? Let's read verse 6. Moreover, her rival wife taunted her relentlessly in order to upset her. She did this on purpose because Jehovah had not given her children. And look at the end of verse 7. Her rival would taunt her so much that Hannah would weep and not eat. Well, as you watch the following artwork, imagine Hannah's distressing circumstance and then how faith turned it all around.
I couldn't sleep or eat. I felt my hopes and dreams slipping away. But even if no one else really understood me, I knew Jehovah would. I told him everything. I knew that the God of justice would set all matters right in his own time and in his own way. Jehovah answered my prayer in such a wonderful way. I never forgot where this incredible blessing had come from. There is no rock like our God.
We're watching Ken Flodin, a helper to the teaching committee. He's taking us through the symposium item, Imitate Women of Strong Faith, Hannah. And I can imagine this material being similarly triggering to what was shown earlier or discussed earlier regarding Sarah and the fact that she was allowed to have offspring, although being past the age, because she had faith. Again, very insensitive, very triggering, very upsetting material for ex-Jehovah's and current Jehovah's Witness women who've gone without having children, who've gone without starting families, even though they might otherwise have done so, purely because they feel they need to put the kingdom first. They need to devote as much time and energy as possible to promoting the organization with the promise that there's going to be a payoff at some future point in the paradise when everything will be perfect and it will be perfect conditions for settling down and having a family. The lack of sensitivity and awareness of this issue in this symposium is mind-blowing. But I also found it interesting when Ken Flodin said,
Hannah was barren, and in that culture, this was a bitter reproach for a woman.
My question would be, which culture, Ken Flodin? In which culture was it considered a bitter reproach for a woman to be barren? I think you mean the Israelite culture. And in fact, there's a Watchtower article, Watchtower 2020, so only last year, the February issue on page 21, speaking of Hannah, it says, Hannah had to deal with some difficult problems. For many years, she was unable to have children. In Israelite culture, a woman who was barren was believed to be cursed. It was Israelite culture, and who got to decide what was or what wasn't part of Israelite culture? Surely it was God. Surely it was the Bible writers themselves. And as if to highlight this, in this particular Watchtower article, it quotes Genesis 30 verses 1 and 2, which says, when Rachel saw that she had borne no children to Jacob, she became jealous of her sister and began to say to Jacob, "Give me children, or else I will die." At this, Jacob's anger flared up against Rachel, and he said, "Am I in the place of God, who has prevented you from having children?" So there's literally a Bible verse where one of the patriarchs says it's God who's preventing you from having children. That's where this whole culture came from, of assuming that because a woman hadn't had children, wasn't churning out offspring, she must be somehow cursed by God. So why skip over that whole point, Ken Flodin? If you're going to mention that that was the culture, do you not also owe some explanation of how a God of love could put women in this situation by arranging for them to be routinely shamed simply for not bearing children?